Today we are going to explore how your yoga practice connects you, this human self with this name and form, to the world around you. Yes, your yoga practice connects you to your roles and relationships, and how is it that you conduct them well and happily? This is well known. But how is it that your yoga practice is a continuum with the world? What is your place in the world? We are going to explore this today. Today is part 3 of my series, What is True Yoga Practice? In the first video, we looked at how is this yoga practice an inside-out journey. In the second video, we looked at the roots and context of yoga and the role of this body and asana pranayama practice on the path of yoga. Today, we will look at how yoga cannot be separated from a human existence and condition, and hence, where are you in all that with your yoga practice? Welcome, I'm Priyamshakti, yoga healing therapist and teacher, rooted in an Indian understanding of yoga, and I contemporize it for the universal context of healing. Let's get on with our exploration today. Some preamble to my exploration today. Firstly, what I'm saying is not anything new. Some of the big names, including Swami Vivekananda, the Buddha, and even Gandhi have said the very same things. I'm going to be saying it in my words and in my unique style, but also, secondly, connect it to our experience of yoga practice in today's modern context and lifestyle, right? This is an open experimental exploration. I'm drawing from my experience as a yoga healing practitioner, therapist, and teacher. This is by no means conclusive, and I will keep adding my reflections and insights and learning in this domain. I invite you to share your honest thoughts, your feelings, your reflections in the comments below. They will go a long way in adding to this open exploration. I am borrowing from the great teacher J. Krishnamurti, his words and his book for our exploration today. The book is called The Only Revolution, and here I will read out para which for me is the essence of what I'm saying. He says, there can be fundamental revolution, a constant inward transformation, only when we as individuals understand our relationship to the collective. The revolution must begin with each one of us and not with external environmental influences. After all, we are the collective, both the conscious and the unconscious. In us is the residue of all the political, social, cultural influences of man. Therefore, to bring about a fundamental outward revolution, there must be a radical transformation within each of us. A transformation which does not depend on environmental change. As I see it, this radical transformation within each one of us is the yoga practice and path. As and how the yoga healing and growth happens on the inside, you will perceive the outside also changing accordingly. The important step here is to begin seeing the outside as a true reflection of the inside. But this requires a radical shift in one's mindset. A consistent mat practice will help us to see these connections in an embodied way. And I will repeat this again and again. A mat practice here means asana pranayama practice, not merely as physical fitness and health, but in a deliberate body, breath, attention, coordinated way as a yoga practice. Fitness is an inevitable consequence of such a practice. And when we begin practicing in this way, we'll start making all kinds of connections. For example, we'll start making a connection between chronic weight loss, a persistent respiratory problem, and lack of nourishment in early childhood. This is one student. Another student made the connections between her fluctuating moods and eating disorder and bullying in teenage, and then in turn linked that to her patterns of choices stemming from low self-esteem. Yet another student looked at her, suddenly realized that her sudden onset of knee pain, where is this coming from, the underlying reasons for that, and she connected it back to presenting symptoms throughout her life and saw a very beautiful pattern over there emerging for her. This means that the practice on the mat addresses the self at different levels, right from the unseen energetic and psychological levels of the self to the very present and manifest physical conditions that we see on the outside. That knee pain will subside. You will start regulating your eating disorders. You will start balancing your emotions, and there will be stability. These are consequences. But what will happen also is the interconnections between all the different parts of you and your life will start emerging for you to see as this beautiful tapestry of life that you are creating. And this is a part of the healing journey. Here is where it starts getting magical, according to me. When you see yourself creating every moment of your life, you will begin experiencing synergies and synchronicities everywhere. You are beginning to tune into your own life patterns, into the patterns of the universe. You are beginning to get in touch with this fundamental movement of the creation of life itself, the creator itself, in fact. This is quite mathematical. When this inner revolution begins, glimpses of the connections become deeper and more expansive, and this will begin to shred you, if it has not already, because you will get in touch with pain. Even if your own personal pain has not already or yet allowed you to feel and empathize the pain of the other, at this point of awareness of creation, you will. Getting in touch with this fundamental and universal pain of being alive, being human. This is such an universal experience that breaks down centuries of walls around our hearts. This is an important threshold in your yoga practice, to feel the underlying pain of suffering. At this point, you may feel that nothing is personal, everything is universal and collective, or you may feel that everything is personal, or both. Words don't matter so much when you are feeling this communion with reality. And in all those moments, and whenever we are able to find this communion with reality, we will begin to make those connections with all of creation, with this entire planet, in fact, and we will begin to take responsibility for our actions, all our actions in this life in a very different way. We cannot but become aware of the connections between our choices and everything else, in fact. Yoga practice, you will realize, is not only about finding inner peace for yourself. While it is that, but it is not only about finding inner peace or a self-love, where it is about being able to drink that early morning meditative cup of coffee. Yoga practice is also about, I think, getting in touch with the privilege of being able to drink that cup of coffee in the comfort of your own home and post it in an Insta reel, while there are countless others working in slavery to get that Android to your fingertips. So yoga practice perhaps also becomes about seeing the carbon footprints of all our favorite activities. I think that it has become very important in today's context to say that while yes, yoga practice is a means of going into ourselves, draw those boundaries and find ourselves in strength and love, yes, but it does not end there. We have to dig deeper into ourselves to find the common roots of being human. And it does not end there. In a healing journey, we need to go even further beyond suffering to be able to find the joy and creativity of life, the sacredness of being alive. This possibly requires another video and exploration entirely. It's quite tempting to see this as a linear movement of no return. However, it does not happen like that in the life of a householder and in human existence, in fact. We see contradictions in ourselves, we make mistakes, we make messes of our lives, we learn, we relearn, and we go deeper into ourselves in a cyclical way. And this also possibly needs another nuanced exploration another time. There's another important aspect of being part of collectives and contexts that I see. First, of course, is the understanding that we are part networks of collectives and contexts. We are not isolated islands. Then, when we bring this self into such a collective or a context, it is very common today to speak of the process of victimization or oppression. We speak of being victimized. We speak of an archetypal victimhood that needs to be healed. We have always seen, it is true that in the history of civilizations and in the history of people, there have been these processes of victimization and oppression, and there have always been forces that resist, question, and challenge these processes of victimization and oppression. However, I am beginning to question this idea of an archetypal victimhood in the inner space of healing and growth. Why? There are two axioms at work for me over here. The first axiom is that no matter what happens, I am always moving in the direction of my healing and growth and my wholeness. And when I say I over here, I mean any entity. Okay, it can be an individual self, it can be a group, it can be a family. Any entity is that I'm always moving towards my own wholeness. There is no other direction that we move in. My limitless self is like a magnet pulling me towards it all the time. And whatever life has to give to me is that intelligence within me taking me towards itself constantly. I have absolute shraddha in this axiom, absolute conviction in this axiom. And if this is the case, then how can anybody be a victim no matter what happens to us? I know this is radical. The other axiom at work here for me is this shloka, Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. This shloka for me indicates that everything is inherently whole. I may be experiencing fragments, but there is an underlying wholeness to everything that is there. I am whole. When I get together with, say, one other person, that makes a whole unit. Three other people, every time it is a completeness in itself. Now, bringing these two together, for me, in a context or collective, which is complete in itself, whatever any entity brings in, again, a completeness, when they bring in something that adds to the collective, that is working for the collective and for themselves, at the same time, simultaneously. There is a simultaneity at work over here. For example, whether it is being the black sheep in the family, or a rebel, or a pessimistic manager of a project team, or the always positive people-pleasing employee, anything, any kind of these kind of adjectives that we give that sort of calcify into these stereotypes. I think actually that whatever it is that we bring in, we are complete in ourselves. The group is complete in itself. No matter what comes in and goes out, entities work with each other. Each is still inherently whole. This takes quite some time to wrap one's head around. I'm still doing it myself. This is for me something that I'm working with constantly when I work with small groups as well as individual one-on-one therapy sessions with people. I think this for me brings up this very important function, co-regulating in group spaces. We can maintain the dynamic balance and stability in the group by recognizing and reinstating each entity as a whole part of that group and the group also as a whole at the same time. Each one is playing out something for the group. There is a group self that we are holding. One of the popular spaces, areas of co-regulation, of course, is between parents and children and siblings. But I think that this works in every group space and it reinstates the self as a work in progress whole, yet rather than calcifying us into a victim or oppressor or any of these stereotypes. I think this relationship between self-regulation and co-regulation is something that needs further nuanced exploration, and for me this will continue. I absolutely invite you to dialogue with me on this and write in the comments what you think. I want to add a reminder to this exploration. The body's role is key to keep this process grounded and pragmatic. At a very basic human level, it is our physicality that embodies these tangible boundaries between the self and the other, right? So the body is a faithful and honest medium of understanding our engagement with ourselves and with the other, and cultivate ahimsa as knowing one's limits in daily living. At the same time, the body is also the medium of experiencing transcendence, of going beyond the self as we know it. These where the divisions between this self and the world can actually dissolve, and it can allow us to even feel glimpses, taste that bedrock of ahimsa, which is a compassion for all. So I will end this series by saying that in a true yoga practice, you will fall in love with yourself and your body just the way it is, and you will start seeing it, experiencing and expressing it as your humanness and as your divinity, which will paradoxically bring about transformation. If you want to experience yoga as this path and practice of healing, transformation and truth, reach out to me for starting your yoga healing journey. I am Priyamshakti, your friendly neighborhood Sakhi in yoga healing.